it's a sacrifice you have to make. Sometimes you got to sacrifice comfort for fashion.
You goddamn right.
It's damn straight.
So we are recording.
All right. What kind of sound are we using?
Well, we always use nothing but the best scrotum sound.
That's right, man. Extra salty. As always. That's the premium scrotum sound.
Oh, hell yeah. Welcome to
Welcome,
another
welcome.
episode of Cinema Slaughter.
And
Happy
you
to be
are?
here. I'm Lenny Bucciolato.
And I
And
am
you?
Omar Atiyah. I am Omar Atiyah.
Yes, you
The
are.
great,
The
the third,
fabulous.
the absolutely fabulous, indeed. Yeah. I started watching. I'm on the second episode of Queen's Gambit. Did you see that?
Oh, I love that. She
Yeah,
is just so riveting in that. The only thing I hated about that show was that there weren't enough episodes. Like I wanted more.
yeah.
I
I
really
mean,
loved.
I'm only on the second one now, but
Okay,
it's like it's never boring. Like
never.
you think something about chess would be kind of whatever, but it's done so well.
Yep.
And
And
she's
even
got that expression, man. She's
that
just like her
kid is something
eyes,
else. She is
yeah.
fantastic.
She is.
Yep.
She really is.
But Anna Taylor-Joy, she
Hmm.
just crushes it later on.
Yep.
Yes, but what happens to her and how she lives her life and how the story unfolds is just it's really well done. I want to read the book. It's definitely one to watch at the very
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
But I spent 2 weeks in horror series, non-genre. It was the Schitt's Creek. Eugene
Oh yeah,
Levy
yeah. My
and Daniel
both of
Levy.
my brothers, watched it, and they keep talking about how good it is.
I started it back in November, and I
Hmm.
saw one episode, and then I don't remember what the hell was going on. It's probably around the time, it was Thanksgiving after that, and then I started. I went back to work,
Yeah.
and so I just was busy, and then the holidays and everything else. And finally, I was like, you know what? And people started talking about it. I was like, oh yeah, I have to get back into this, and it's so well written. The comedy is on point. I mean, it was they're hysterically funny. Eugene Levy is ridiculously funny as it is. So, and I love that sense of humor. So,
Yeah.
his son who plays the character David. I mean, the whole cast is just fantastic. So, I recommend it to anyone who's
Yeah.
interested in a comedy series. But the characters are so interesting, and and here's another one that 6 seasons and that was it. They ended the show, and I wish they kept going. It was just so damn good. And
Well, I think they're following the Seinfeld idea of finishing it while you're on top, like
oh yeah,
ending the series while you're on top, so that because
yep.
there's so many really good shows that just keep going on, and that they Walking Dead. Hello.
I was a huge Walking Dead fan. I started
Same
off
here.
reading the comic books, and I was totally obsessed with
Hmm.
this show. I mean, it was everything, especially because I was a huge Romero fanatic, and I love zombies. Although as of late, they've been getting a little bit. It was a little long in the tooth. Anyway, the
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
just fell off. I mean, the after Negan was introduced and he killed off a couple of characters, and after that season, I was done with it. Especially after they killed off Chandler Riggs's character, and I don't know. And then Rick left the show, and
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
gave up on it
With it.
long before that even. Yeah.
Yeah,
It just it got too repetitive. I mean, what more can you do with zombies? All right, so, obviously you're going to have bad people, regular humans. But what, I mean, zombies work well in movies,
yeah.
but as a whole series, unless you're going to introduce some new element, some other, you know, whatever, I mean, he can't, it's not a vampire type show or, or a werewolf type show, but
Yeah.
you have to do something different to keep it fresh. But if it's just zombies and bad
Hmm.
people, you know,
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Like
just,
I said, it kind
it
of wore out
ruins
its
its
welcome.
course. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and they tried to mix it up a little bit, and I give them credit for doing like the whisperers and stuff like that from the comic book show, from the comic books themselves, and adapted it into the show. But I think it's for the most part it's done, and I think this is their last season anyway. So it is
Yeah.
what it is. But it started off, it was fantastic, and I couldn't
Oh,
get enough of
yeah.
it.
I
And
remember like those first like maybe 2 seasons, with every episode you watch the beginning and there's that music and you're excited, but
oh
at the
yeah,
same time there was a sense of doom and like, oh my God, this is so
dude, we would have
heavy.
watch parties. I mean, we would get
Yeah.
together like 10 or 12 of us watching this shit.
Yeah.
And obviously, pre-COVID, because you can't get together with anyone anymore.
Yeah, right?
Um, which after a while, I'm sure everyone at this point is feeling the sense of pressure and not being able to, be social and everything else. I mean, it gets to you after a while. So, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
shout out to everybody dealing with this bullshit right now, and hopefully we can get through it real fast. And I say real fast, which means like another year and change.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm like everybody else, just burnt out of it.
Well, they're vaccinating, I believe, 1.5 million people a day.
Is that a real number, or is that just like a bullshit story?
I mean, you're still
You know what I
talking
mean? It's like,
about,
how do you know?
well,
So,
you know what? Here's the thing, though. I don't know if it's 1.5 million shots because remember, you got to take 2 shots.
right.
So I think it's 1.5 million of each shot. I don't know. I'd have
Okay.
to read up on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, but
It's a tough
I
call. I
can't
mean,
wait.
you don't know, but hopefully we're able to get past all this stuff. I mean, I know it took like 3 years. Well, I think, weren't we talking about this earlier? The pandemic in 1918.
Oh, the Spanish flu.
The
Yeah.
Spanish flu. It took them 3 years to get past that. I mean, so I
Yeah,
mean,
but I mean, of course, back then, well, I mean, it's like a lot of things to consider. That they didn't have the medical technology and understanding of genetics and stuff like that. Of course, the populations were a lot smaller, but
and they didn't have a
yeah,
general fear or mistrust of science like we do today, and
no,
anti-intellectualism. So
reigns
anyway, I
supreme. Yeah,
we digress, and I apologize.
indeed.
We don't want to get into that. We have enough fake horror to worry about than dealing with real horror. So we'll dig right in. Today today's topic of discussion is something near and dear to my buddy's heart. This recent.
Yes,
Why don't you introduce it for us, Omar, and paint a picture of this, because this
uh,
is all you, baby.
I know it is. We are discussing
Uh,
Psycho Goreman. And
Psycho Goreman.
Psycho Gorman, PS for short.
Right.
Um, I
No, I thought it was PG for short.
oh, I'm sorry, PG. My
Right.
bad. Um, so I man, I know you didn't feel the same way, but I
No,
just
no, no.
love this movie.
I'll speak my
I'll
mind in a
speak for
moment.
for yourself. Yeah, man, it was all right. So it's this 80s and maybe a little 90s inspired horror flick. It's all pretty much almost entirely practical effects. It's a comedy. It's goofy. It's about these two kids who discover, they're digging, that they're outside playing around and they dig in the earth and they find this like glowing crystal that was
Right.
buried on Earth, millions of years ago. And under the crystal is this container that holds the namesake of the movie. The character, I forgot his real name, but the kids
Right.
decide to call him Psycho Goreman.
Right.
And he's this ancient warlord that battled and conquered throughout the galaxy, millions of years ago, and it's just over the top. They kind of befriend him, but he wants to kill them, but they control him. This girl controls him with the crystal, and he's trying to
Hmm.
get to the crystal. And then when they uncover him, it draws the attention of the powers that buried him in the first place, and um, and it's just crazy. There's like dynamics with family relations, and it's just over the top. It's really crazy. A lot of, like I said, practical effects. I think there was only like maybe one scene that I could think of that had modern looking CGI, and it was a quick clip.
Yeah.
Everything else is practical, and I just had a ball with this movie. It was just so silly and ridiculous, and it kind of took my mind off of the times that we're living in, where everything is just so miserable. It was just great to see like a cheesy, and I mean cheesy, sci-fi flick.
Cheesy doesn't even do it justice, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't
Where
know.
first of all, is this a foreign movie? Like I think
It's
we talked about
Canadian.
it. It's Canadian, okay, but
Yeah.
I felt like it was a lot farther than our northern cousins. You know what I mean? Like it
It
felt
did,
like it had a European kind
yeah,
of
it did
sense
have so
to it.
certain, European sensibilities, right.
Mhm.
Um,
And it
but,
had this
yeah.
feel. It had this
Uh-huh.
feel of like a Power Rangers, a fucked up Power
Yes.
Rangers movie.
Especially in the scene where, I mean, you can't ruin this movie because it's just so silly and over the top, but Psycho Gorman's former allies come in, and they're all in these crazy outfits, and it's all puppets and
Gallery of
makeup,
assassins.
it's gallery, yeah, and they're just like just crazy over the top, and he's got to battle them because they turned against him, and it was very Power Rangers. um that was where I throw in the 90s. All the well, okay, and also the Templar queen or whatever she was,
Yeah, yeah.
and yeah, but yeah, it was just so silly. I just loved it. It was, like I said, an escape. I love goofy stuff. I like movies that don't take themselves seriously, where they
Hmm.
just make fun of themselves, and
What
I
was
I
the
just did.
Psycho Gorman? He sees this magazine with like a beefcake photo, right? What was that all about? When um, he's totally into this hot guy or whatever that was in the magazine. Do you
Ah,
remember that?
I vaguely remember that, man, because this whole movie had so many scenes, in my opinion, that I think are going to become like classics. They're going to be quotable at some point. I just have to watch it a couple of more times to remember scenes, like like we could quote Schwarzenegger movies, Ghostbusters, stuff like that.
Do you
I think this
remember?
movie is going to be like
All
that.
right, so Omar and I worked together. We worked for a telecommunications company years ago. That's how Omar and I met. So we became instant friends because he had the same stuff on his desk like I was into. Like he had a caricature of Schwarzenegger. Um,
Yeah.
and he had like Hellraiser figures and a bunch of other stuff on his desk, and so even though he wasn't at his desk at the moment that I was passing by, I was like, this guy, we're already friends, we just don't know each other yet. So but years after we've been friends for a while, we were in the office, and this was when um Napoleon Dynamite first broke, right? And you were like, dude, you
Yes.
got to see Napoleon Dynamite. I'm like, all right, I'll watch Napoleon Dynamite. And then I came back to work the next day, and he's like, yeah, did you see it? Did you like it? And I was like, dude, this movie was fucking shit. Like, are you kidding me? Do you really like this film? And I'm like, that doesn't, it was just dumb and so weird. And then I started rattling off the scenes in the movie, and then this scene, and then this scene. I'm like, wait a minute. At first, I was so dead set. What? And immediately, I was after quoting the stuff from the movie. I realized how really quotable in Dynamite was. and it was so weird and different. And now it's a movie that we love to watch and then we quote. And it's older now, and I we watched it like a year or two ago with my son Sebastian, and I got Sebastian. Now he's 18, but at the time when he was a little bit younger, I got him into a bunch of movies that stuff that we love to talk about and we watch again and again and again. So that was one of the movies I was like, all right, so we need to see Napoleon Dynamite. So when you were like, dude, you need to see Psycho Gorman, you need to watch this and watch it with a crowd. So I grabbed my buddy, which is my viewing partner now, Sebastian. So I was like, all right, dude, Omar says we need to watch this movie, and he's like, oh, all right, well, so we'll watch it. So we sat down, we put the movie on, and we were just dumbfounded. And I was just recalling that moment where we were talking about, Napoleon Dynamite, where it was a movie that I thought I hated, but came to the realization that it was actually a great movie and funny. And so this was not that movie, because I still, as I think about it, I just think about how annoying it was. And I think because the characters in the film are so abrasive and so god awful, I mean, I'm sure the kids did a good job of acting, and I don't take anything away from the kids. And I know that they were written that way, but especially Mimi, the sister, and I know you and Rob and a few other people talked about this. The sister was just fucking morally reprehensible
And
and just
obnoxious.
twisted and obnoxious, and just treated her brother and everyone around her like at best a second class citizen, and at worst she was willing to just let them die if they had to, like just to appease whatever twisted sensibilities this kid has.
Power
uh,
hunger.
Power hungry and everything, like. So at this point, we watched it, and afterwards Sebastian was like, Dad, you have to text Omar and tell him how worst thing he's ever suggested. And he's like, how could we have watched this movie? Sebastian got a headache from watching this movie. He said, he goes, it gave me a headache, I just felt fucking awful after watching this movie. So that's how we both felt. And I know I don't want to take anything away from your love of this movie. I just didn't get into it. And normally practical effects, I'm all in. I want to see movies with more practical effects. I don't necessarily hate digital effects. They have a great place. I mean, things like the Lord of the Rings, you would never have those massive battles and the armies, which
Exactly.
looked amazing.
Right.
You wouldn't have that without digital effects. So they have their place, especially if they're done well.
Hmm.
But the physical your practical effects in this movie, um, while entertaining, and I can't take anything away from the costumes are actually really cool in this movie. As much as they look like Power Ranger costumes, some of these are really just funny to look at, and they were done well. Um, but I just could not get into this movie. It was just too annoying and dumb.
You need further viewings, man. You have to
No, I
take it in. You
don't.
have to absorb it, man. You have to absorb it. I'm telling you.
I can't do it. I can't do it. One is enough. Not I can't revisit it. Um, no.
You know what it is? I the thing is with cult movies nowadays, I think because uh like when we were growing up, we had, HBO or cable, and they
Mhm.
constantly keep repeating the same movies,
Right.
constant. And so you'd sit and watch them, and that you keep watching them over and over and over until you remember the lines.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters we could just
Oh my God. Yeah.
shoot out the lines that, any Schwarzenegger movie, all these movies, you could just bounce out the lines and, without a problem. But now we live in times where there's so much stuff to watch that and you don't repeat it, like, there's just so much to watch that you watch it and then you kind of forget and you don't watch it again.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of difficult, I think, for modern movies to become cult movies. I think with cult movies just require repeated viewing, you know?
I
Even when
agree.
Napoleon Dynamite came out, it was still you didn't have all these online, you know, you didn't have Netflix and
I think, yeah,
Amazon.
Netflix at that point was still physical media.
Yeah,
You still
yeah.
got discs from Netflix at that point.
E exactly, and so you ended up watching it a couple of times, and that's why, you know, movies like that tend to sink in. But now I think it's just so much, and so I don't know if, Psycho Goreman's gonna become a, you know, cult classic because I just don't know if that's possible anymore. I thought, for example, that, the film version of, What We Do in the Shadows is cult worthy because I thought that was an excellent movie. I thought it was quotable. It had some phenomenal scenes. It was hilarious, you know.
Yeah,
But it's just it's been out for a couple of years now, and I don't see people referencing it often, you know.
but
And
the
I think that
TV show, I think, is even more hysterically funny. I think the TV show is funnier, and they
I thought it
develop the
was
characters.
exactly. I think it is very funny. I like the show a lot. I actually thought that I like the movie a little more. Regardless,
Mhm.
I mean, I guess he could sort of maybe with TV shows like with The Office, for example, that's constantly being, you know, you always see memes and quotes and stuff like that
Right.
where you know, but nowadays it's just not as easy for a movie or a show to become as quotable as cult like, you
Yeah.
know.
No, I agree with that, and I didn't really look at it in those terms because when I'm talking to, other friends or we're discussing these types of things, we always revert back to, movies that we were obsessed with, like Escape from New York.
All the
I've
time.
seen that movie hundreds of times. Even when I was a kid, I saw Excalibur in the theater, and then they put it on HBO, and we saw it again and again, and then to the
All
point
the
where
time.
I think or 82 we got a VHS, and then we started, with blank tapes, we started recording stuff from HBO or even just from regular television, and then we would watch it over and over and over. So we became obsessed and it became part of our DNA. And I think you're right, maybe there's just so much content, there's so much stuff to be exposed to, that it's really, you know, a rare occurrence when a movie really attaches itself to you and you feel like you need to watch it again and again and again. Um,
Especially also, like, on TV, on cable, they repeated it, and there was nothing else to watch, so you sat and watched it, and
yeah,
if it's a movie that you liked, it was so funny, it was so good, you just watched it over and over again,
yeah,
and that was just it, you know?
hmm,
And, but nowadays, first of all, you get to choose when you wanna watch things, you
right,
know? And so, whenever you wanna sit and watch something, you're like, "Nah, let me watch something new that I haven't seen before."
yep,
So it doesn't have that repetition for to create a cult, you know, type
hmm,
type movie.
yeah. I mean, I own The Witch, but if it's on TV, and I happen to be flipping through channels, I'll watch it again. And I've seen it in the theater and I've seen it, a couple of times after that. But then there are people like, oh, what's a good movie I should watch? And I'm like, oh, watch The Witch. And I ended up, discussing it with them, and then to the point where I just kind of turn myself onto it again, and I'll put it on, because it just that Hereditary, and there's a list of movies in the last 10 years that I will watch again and again and again. That I just feel like that they have such things to say that
Yeah.
that they I feel like I need to see it again. Um, and Anna Taylor-Joy, I love her. I think she's
Yeah.
whatever she's done, I can't get enough of watching her on screen. I think regardless of the character she's playing, she just is so interesting. So, sometimes you get lucky and it's like there's actors in it that just knock it out of the park, and that coupled with the content of the film, you just it speaks to you.
Right.
Um, and I wish I liked this movie because it has those types of elements where I think it's so stupid and over the top. Normally, I would have been all in on it, but I was so annoyed and put off by it. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I
I,
mean, I don't want to trash anyone's work. Like we said in some of our original episodes, we want to talk about movies that we saw that meant something or at least were fun. Um, and I don't want to trash anyone's work because I know firsthand how hard it is to get your ideas and put them, record them and film them and it's a difficult process. Um, so and the practical effects and how they achieve that stuff, I can't even imagine what the budget is on this movie. But let me see if we can
mm,
find it. I don't know what the budget is. I don't even know if it says here. So, oh, and the gross of this film, they
mm,
grossed only 78,000 worldwide.
wow.
So it doesn't really say what the budget is, but the budget they blew their wad on the practical effects. I mean, you just seeing that kid turn into a giant brain.
Ah, that was so great, man.
That was, I think, for me, that was probably the funniest
Yeah.
scene. And then then this kid is just a brain for the rest of his life. And the mother and father are eating dinner, and the kid's a brain, just a massive,
And
you know,
I mean, that's how they end the movie. It's just
yeah.
them eating dinner and the kid's just sitting there and he's a brain and he's eating.
And
I thought that was great, man. That was just
that was the funniest
hilarious.
part of the movie, and the parents are just like, they're just eating,
Yeah.
and their kid is turned into some creature, but they're determined to just keep it moving. Um, yeah, so I mean, and then obviously, the character of Mimi at the end, they're like, you know, she makes a deal with Psycho Gorman. She's like, all right,
Right.
just go ahead and um, I'm going to give you back your thing. Just
Your
don't kill me.
crystal. Right.
Yeah, she's like, don't kill us. And they're like,
Yeah.
not just us, it's the whole family. What about the planet? She's like, oh yeah, I guess, all right. And of course, I
Right.
think he ignores that, and once he gets his powers back, he starts laying waste to
Yeah, he
different
becomes
neighborhoods.
he becomes huge. He becomes this like Godzilla character and just starts blasting everything.
Yeah,
It's
like he just
fantastic.
is it though.
Oh, it is. It really is. It was, I'm telling you, man, it was just so like, all right,
I'll watch it again.
yeah.
I'll watch it again, and I'll give it another shot. And maybe I was just expecting something different. But I'll see. I'll watch it again.
I just, you know what part, like, for example, I don't know why it just stuck in my head. There were so many over the top things, and this is the least over the top, but for some reason, I just thought it was so silly. Is that they free him, right? And then he starts talking to them, and then he's speaking English, and he's like, "Oh, you speak the dialect of the blah blah blah. How primitive. How convenient that he happens to speak that same language. And it's
Yeah,
English, and it happens to be derived from some galactic language, just to get the story going. It was just so ridiculous, but for me, I just found that so amusing. It was so silly, and that's the thing. It's like with this movie is it just makes fun of itself so much. And then at one point, they start a band. It's like this punk band, and he's playing drums and stuff. I saw that. I was in tears, man. It was hilarious. It was just so ridiculous.
I did
And
find
I
that.
love
I found that funny too. And like, how I am though. I'm like, I can't bring myself to laugh at this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so
right.
fucking annoyed right now. Like, I don't want to admit the things that were funny, but yeah, that they were funny. See, this movie is more funny than it is, anything else. But you're
Well,
right.
I
I
mean,
mean, it doesn't
it's a
take.
straight comedy,
Yeah, it doesn't take itself seriously.
at
Um,
all.
what I It's gory as fuck. I mean, if
Oh
people like
yeah.
gory movies, this movie is gory, and you can't get over some of the scenes, like some of the things that they're doing. in this movie is great, and the final battle, it just kind of left me a little, it fell flat. I think.
It, I'll give that. I mean, it was kind of like I think the whole thing with the family got a little too carried away. The thing
Yeah,
is with this movie, for me, what I noticed, yeah, there were some parts where like the little girl got a little too annoying, right? But
yeah,
right before it got to the point where you're like, all right, I want to, kick this kid, through a goalpost or something like that. They just pull away and something else would happen.
yeah,
So, you know, but I don't know. I just, for some reason, something stuck with, like, it was just on the wavelength with this movie, just hit me. I
yeah.
was just like, this is the greatest thing I've seen
Maybe it was
this
the
year.
right movie at the right time for you, but maybe it was the wrong movie at the right time or at the wrong time. So
Maybe, man.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I'll give it for your sake. I will give it another watch.
All right.
So
Okay.
give me rate this movie for me. What's your rating on this?
How many what are those power crystals or whatever that thing he had on his I man out of 5, dude, I gotta give it like a 4.5, man.
Oh my
For
God.
what it, because of, for what it is, for what this movie is. I mean, look, it's not Kubrick, for God's sakes, but
Right.
it was just a fun roller coaster ride for me. It was just so silly and ridiculous. And I was just sitting there laughing. I just had a great time.
All
Great
right.
time, man.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna give it a 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at first I was
Yeah.
like a half a star just to bust your balls. And then I was thinking, I'm like, no, the practical effects, and there were some funny scenes, and for what they were attempting to accomplish with this, regardless of the annoying kids in this movie.
Yeah.
And fuck, I mean, and then later on, towards the beginning of the third act, the parents become equally as annoying, and then the whole family dynamic goes off the rails, and I was just like, I just want everyone to be killed in this movie already. I want everyone to die, and like even the good guys in this movie are morally. There's not a single character with any redeeming qualities other than the poor innocent kid that was turned into a brain. Like that's it.
Yep.
And maybe the two cops that come to stop Psycho Gorman,
Right.
kids allow the cops to be killed. At least one of them is killed off. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like enough is enough. So
Oh,
I give
it's
it
great.
a 2, and I think I'm being generous.
The cop with his eyes just constantly rolling back in his
Yeah, yeah.
eyes. Just hilarious, man. I don't know. Just, I'll tell you, something
I
about
don't
that
know
movie
either.
just hit a chord with me. I was just like, all right, this is just hilarious. I was sitting there laughing out loud as I was watching the movie. It was just
All
so
right.
ridiculous. Yeah, I'll tell you, man.
All right. So there you have it, folks. Psycho Gorman. It's a crazy ass off the rails ride. It's sci-fi, but it's gory, and if you don't mind kind of a low budget goodness, practical effects, which I think most fans of these type of genre films are going to dig. Um, Watch it yourself, see what you think. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that would look at this at face value and find it extremely hilarious. And like I said, there are scenes in this, like I'm just looking at this, you know, insane, murderous alien playing drums, or looking at like a Playgirl magazine or something, and seeing a guy with a naked from the waist up, and suddenly he's titillated and turned on by it. Um, it's just so fucking absurd. Um,
I love absurd.
so there you have it, Psycho Gorman. Check it out.
Check it out.
Check it out. Got anything else for us? What are we talking about next?
I don't know, man. Is there anything good coming out?
Uh,
Oh, how about that? Oh, that movie that was set, I think, like in World War II, up in the sky, something like Cloud, Shadow on the Cloud, or something like that,
oh, I
with
haven't seen it.
Chloe Grace Moretz.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We could check that out. Is it a sci-fi movie or
That was written by John Landis's son,
Max Landis, who
Max
sadly
Landis.
is also off the rails. That guy just fucking lost his mind. And it's
Yeah,
too bad because if you ever get a chance, and I recommend this, Trailers from Hell, um, and their
I
podcast.
I used
Um,
to watch that.
yeah, Trailers from Hell, they're fantastic. I've been into them for about 5 years now. And the podcast, it's a great podcast too. So check them out. But yeah, that's how I first found out about Max Landis because he was talking about some movies. One was like um, Gremlins. He was talking about Terminator and a bunch of other movies, and he's equally as entertaining as his old man. And but then I found out about the recent, you know, abuse.
Allegations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
abuse
It's,
allegations
yeah, real nasty. Real
yeah,
nasty.
which is a shame too. So, but
It
yeah.
is.
So, all right. Well, we that's definitely could be on the agenda. We'll have to check that out.
Yeah, yeah. The trailer looked pretty good, so I'm like, all right, I gotta definitely give this a shot. And I
Okay.
like Chloe Grace Moretz. She's
Oh
really
yeah,
cool actor. Great screen presence.
absolutely. All right, there you have it, folks. Check it out.
Chickadee, check it
I'm
out.
gonna have to try and check it out again. So we'll see what happens. All
Sweet.
right. Thanks for joining Cinema Slaughter. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Peace out.
Later.